Hi guys, and welcome back to World of Tanks, and the Monster Mash event weekend is upon us, and along with the awakened abilities of the monster tank, there are two new PvE ops to try and complete. So first of all, we're going to have a quick look at the awakened abilities of each tank, and then I'm going to try and give you some tips on the actual PvE events. Now, the Gorinich gets Flame Breath for burning your opponent. It also gets high explosive artillery style fireball shells, which are quite good fun, and health regeneration as well, as you can see there on that Gorinich in front of me. Now the Kaiju gets super fast lightning bolt shells, which are your standard armor piercing. The Kaiju one obviously it's high explosive, but yeah, armor piercing super fast lightning bolts. You also get atomic breath, as you'll see here, just me messing about, and it's immune to the fire breath of the Gorinich, which is something to keep in mind. The Lycan gets a burst of speed and manoeuvrability when it's got a full clip, as you can see there, and it also gets an increase in rate of fire, but it returns to normal as soon as your clip's empty until you're fully reloaded again. As soon as you're reloaded, it all kicks back in. The Revenant Panther is almost untrackable, and as you can see here, the tracks actually count as 9,999 mil of effective track armor, so it is almost impossible to track this thing. It also blends in with wrecked tanks when you're not moving or firing, as you can see there, but the eyes do glow up, I think it's orange or red, when you're on the move, as do the vents on the back. However, if you look on the map, there are two other friendly Panthers near me, and they don't show up. You do not show up on radar when you are spotted. You don't show up on radar. You also don't get an outline around you when you're trying to shoot at one, so that's quite a pain in the arse. And they take reduced damage to the hull, as you can see here. But they are a little bit overpowered with not showing up on radar and not getting an actual outline around them. It's quite a bugger to shoot one. There you go, you can see there, just its eyes light up as it fires. So that's all of the awakened abilities. And now we're going to move on to the actual PvE ops. Now, the full moon one I didn't find quite as hard as this one, and my recommendations for this one would be, I did it in the KV4, so you want something either really heavily armoured, but you do need to have a decent amount of ammunition in it. I'd say, well, what does the T28 prototype, I think, carries around 32, maybe 40 rounds, something like that, and I think I used maybe 30 odd. So getting on there, so you do need to have a decent amount of rounds in it. And like I say, I did try this with something very heavily armoured. I also tried it in the 110, but I got surrounded and died. Now I'm not saying you couldn't do it in the 110, it's just it was my first attempt at it. But I did this in the KV4 the first time after, I think I did it, yeah, died in the 110, went in the KV4 and did it, I think. No, I tried it in the T32 and died, then went in the KV4 and managed to do it. So I would say something very heavily armoured. The KV4 was quite good though, because it's got a decent rate of fire as well. Not brilliant, but you know, better than some. Now, if you haven't got anything really heavily armoured like the KV4, which you can sort of angle and bounce a lot of shots, then I would recommend something with a good turret, and either a really good rate of fire or really good alpha damage. Now, with these Revenant Panther, it's the same as when you're actually in the Monster Mash op itself. They don't get an outline around them, as you can see, and you have to shoot them in the turret. That is their weak spot. So you've got to go for turret shots. You know, you hit the body and you might do about 20 damage. Now, when I was in the KV4, I didn't really need to hide behind the Gorinich because I could angle and just bounce the shots. But if you haven't got a KV4, like I say, you want something with a good turret. Not so much about the hull, the turret is more important, and what you want to do is actually hide behind the Gorinich. Now, when I did this the first time, the Gorinich stayed on the hill where I am until both of the Panthers were dead, but for some reason he decided to bugger off and leave me in the lurch a little bit, so I had to use the scenery. I know that sounds daft, but yeah, use the scenery. If you've got good gun depression, use the risers. it might take you a couple of times to try it just to figure out exactly which direction they're coming from, or watch these videos and you'll see which direction they come from. They always come from the same way. So, like I was saying, you need to use the Gorinich for cover, and you've got one with you at the minute, and you do get a second one with you, because the Gorinich can regenerate his health, as you can see there, whereas you can't. So don't be afraid of using him for cover. If you're tall enough, hide on one side of him and shoot over the back of him, which really helps, especially, like I say, if you've got something with a good strong turret, you basically go hull down behind the Gorinich, like I'm about to do here. Now, I found this one particularly difficult with me being colourblind, because a lot of the time the only thing that gives away the location of these Crafts Panthers in some of the darker bits of the map are the glowing eyes, and when he's through a bush I can't actually see them because I'm red-green colourblind, so it was quite difficult. But yeah, as you can see, no outline at all, so it does make it a little bit tricky, but the tanks that are with you will help you out. As you can see, they've taken a couple of them out. So they're not just useless. The Gorinich will just sort of spew flames into the air a little bit, showing off every now and again. But they do actually work for you as well. Now, I was just thinking, I wonder if the Crafts Panther itself would be a good one to do this in, because with them being AI, they generally just lock onto you, kind of using auto-aim, so it goes for centre mass, and the Crafts Panther's weak spot is the turret, so that might be one to try it in if you've actually unlocked the Revenant yourself, because they'd be going for your hull, and obviously they have to hit your turret, and you take massively reduced damage to the hull. But if not, if you're wanting to use something like a normal Panther or Panther 88 or other mediums, and you've not got something with a strong turret, then again, just use the Gorinich for cover. Play peekaboo with them, or, you know, just try and hide behind it if you are tall enough again and shoot over the back. But learn where they're going to come from, so you know which side of the Gorinich to hide on. And that's basically what I do throughout this one, is just use this guy as mobile cover. And from doing it a couple of times, I figured out where they actually, you know, where they came from. But you can see how difficult it is to actually see them. It is really hard, and actually one of the hardest parts of this level is the next checkpoint, and that's the bit where I died, and that's the bit where I normally have the most trouble, because you're in the middle of some thick foliage, it's very dark, and you just have so much trouble seeing them. Now I'm going to move back behind the Gorinich, but I didn't need to because one of the other guys finished him off. But I know a lot of people struggled with the hammer PvE ops, which is why I decided to do this one for these. But they're not. I don't think these are quite as hard as the hammer ops. I don't think they are, and you don't seem to get a medal or anything for doing these, which is unfortunate. They're good fun. I mean, it looks fantastic with the film grain and the sort of the sepia look to the garage and a slightly sepia look to this. It does remind me of some of the old Hammer horror movies, some of the old Friday the 13th films and sort of horror films from the late 70s and early 80s. It does remind me a lot of those, you know, the classic horrors, Evil Dead and that sort of thing. Well, that's more of a horror comedy, but you get my meaning. Now, this bit I found to be one of the harder bits, just because of your positioning, because of how dark it is, and because of all the foliage, and because all these tanks keep knocking trees down. It gets very cluttered, and especially with the Revenant Panthers not having an outline, it did make this part very difficult, and to use these two guys for cover on this bit is quite hard. So if you can get around the other side of them, there are two other Revenants somewhere, and I think they're down towards the bottom of the hill. Now, I've never actually seen those two. The other tanks seem to take care of them. As long as you can take care of these two that are up here, you'll generally be alright, but I think I do take a bit of damage up here. And the last part of it is actually surprisingly easy. Now, another thing I noticed like I say, apart from just sort of locking onto centre mass. So, like I say, if you've got the Crafts Panther, that might be a good one to try it in. Another thing I've noticed is that if you hit them in the turret, they will turn to look at you. If you're the only thing they can see, obviously they will focus on you. I know it sounds obvious, but I'm just letting you know. So as I came up over that ridge there, I was the only thing it could see, so it focused on me. If you with the other AI on your team, you hit them in the turret, it will then turn to focus on you. But if you pop back behind, say, the Gorinich, and that shoots it in the turret, it will then generally focus its attention on that. So it usually focuses on whatever shot it last, sort of thing. Not every time, but it's just something I've noticed. So again, if you've not got anything heavily armoured or with a strong turret, you could try and use that to your advantage. So pop out, put a shot in, and then dodge back, wait for one of the other tanks to actually hit it, let it turn to focus on them, and then that's your opportunity to pop out and shoot them in the turret again. Now, I took a bounce off something there, and I think, yeah, it's another Panther behind me, one that I'd missed. I actually thought that one was dead, which was a bit careless, and this one nearly cost me the mission. I had to do it again, because when I went to look at the KV4 footage that I'd done it in, it turns out I didn't notice before that this is actually 20 minutes long, and I'd still got it set to 15-minute recording, so it missed off the first few minutes of it, so I had to just quickly go through it again in the T32 so that I've actually got something to show you. And one more should finish him off. They don't have health bars either. That's something else I've forgotten. I don't know if you guys noticed. So they don't show up on radar, they have no health bar, and they have no outline. And in the Monster Mash event in the Dead City, all that applies, so they're impossible to track, they don't show up on radar, they have no outline, and they can blend in and look exactly the same as the wrecked tanks that are on that level. Now, I'm sorry, but I am going to have to call a little bit OP on that. I really am. Do you know, it's great fun. It's fantastic to ambush. I did it earlier. I went and sat in the cap circle, and I sat with some other wreckage, and I turned my turret slightly, pointed it down to the ground, and then held R1 so I could move my camera around without moving my turret. And another tank actually drove right past me. They knew that something was there because they were spotted. You could see them looking around, and they drove right past me, and when they'd gone past me, they got the back to me. I just turned my turret and started putting a couple of shots into them. And because your eyes go down again afterwards, you fire and the glow goes out, they couldn't quite figure out where it was coming from, and it was great fun. Now, Wargaming have really done a blinder with the AI on this. It is just like playing with random teammates as the Gorinich pushes me out of the way and shoves me along the trench while I'm trying to take my shot. I'm sure we've all had to suffer through that with random teammates every now and again. So on this last part, the Lycan comes over from the left, so from the eastern side. There's a Spectre and a Gorinich come down from the north, and a Kaiju sort of comes in from the northeast over towards the zero line that way. So as long as you know where they are. Now, if you can take care of the Lycan, usually the Spectre is dealt with, as is the Kaiju. It was the same on both times I went through it. I'm not saying it's going to always be that way. And then it leaves you to basically take care of the Gorinich. Now, I think there was another Crafts Panther that popped up, and I'm pretty sure that when I did it in the KV4 I had to deal with that, but it looks like the AI have actually dealt with it this time. So it's just a case of going for the weak spots on the Gorinich, which is that sort of machine gun turret, commander's cupola type thing on top, and also the big R2-D2 looking gun turret on the front as well. And there we go.
Mission accomplished.
Well, I hope the advice I've given you for that one will help you out. Like I say, I find that that one is the harder of the two, and that's simply because they don't show up on radar, they've got no outline, and you can only hit the turret. Which isn't too bad because they are really slow, but yeah, I think I found that one the harder one. I really don't know why I put the results on the end of here. I think it is just a force of habit. But anyway, we'll look at the next one now. Right, so here we are. This one is Beware the Full Moon. The last one was Hunt the Revenants. And this one is easier, because I think they do actually show up on radar, the Lycans. So, and obviously you get the outline around them, and they just seem to be easier to see because it's a city level and it's not as dark. I think one of the things that makes the Hunt the Revenants more difficult is the no outlines and the fact that it's so dark, and they've added in foliage where there wasn't any before. So this one I'm doing in the Tiger, not the Tiger, I'm doing it in the Hammer, just to show. I actually did it the first time in the T28 prototype. I think, what did I try and do it in first on this one? Might have been the T32 again. Yeah, I think it probably was. But then I did it in the T28 prototype because it's very heavily armoured on the front, and the Lycans just can't get through your armour, most of it. They did get through occasionally, but it was more luck than anything else. So I basically did it in that, and I thought, well, not everyone's going to have the T28 prototype or anything as heavily armoured as that. A lot of people have got the Hammer because they got it through the op, or they'll have something comparable to the Hammer. And the Hammer, I mean, it's got that long 88, it does 240 damage, which isn't too bad, but it's got a good rate of fire as well. Whereas the T28 prototype does have a good rate of fire, but it's not as good as the Hammer. It does a lot more damage. But like I say, it is a lot more thickly armoured. So I wanted to see if you could do it in something like this, which, let's face it, a Lycan could punch through the front of this quite easily. And again, you could do this if you've got something heavily armoured like a KV4 or possibly an IS3, something like that. Do it in that, you know, that's fine. Or do it in a tier 10. I had a go at this in the Death Star and it was so much fun, and it was really easy. So if you've got something like a tier 10, do it in that. But I'd say you probably want a tier 7 or an 8 to do this in. If you want a bit of a challenge but not too hard, tier 7 or 8 I'd say. But yeah, like I say, do it. If you want to do it something heavily armoured and you got it, do that. If not, I'd say similar sort of thing applies for this one. Do it in something with a strong turret and hide behind the Gorinich. Same applies. Use him for cover. His health regenerates and another one does join you. Maybe watch this video a couple of times. The Lycans will appear from the same place each time, and they will basically do the same behaviour each time. So if you can learn that pattern, you can place yourself and position yourself so that you are in cover. You can position yourself so that you're side scraping or whatever. You do actually have to move quite near the numbered markers for it to actually set off. But I think you could probably do this in a quick medium as long as you use the Gorinich for cover, and use the cover that's available to you. Maybe zip through the marker to set it off when the Gorinich is in place, and then double back on yourself and get yourself into position. But like I say, I'd probably say a tier 7 or 8. Well, you can do it in something higher if you want, but it is very easy, or I find it very easy. But that's why I decided to do it in the Hammer, because, well, I'm going to have to use the Gorinich for cover, so I can show you sort of doing that. And like I say, a lot of people have got the Hammer, or at least something comparable armour and gun wise to this. So the next two come from down this street, and I think this one gets taken out that quickly. It actually causes a bit of a problem. The next one comes along, and he goes off to our right. If he gets a chance, he goes off to our right and around this lump of rubble just to the right of the tank here. So that's the next part done. And like I say, I said this one, I thought this one was a lot easier. But now we have a conga line going on. So yeah, get the Gorinich and the Spectre out and it's a party. That's what I mean, it causes a problem. So we have a conga line of tanks. The Gorinich just keeps pushing on through, and eventually they slide off to the side and he gets out. But the Spectre, well, again, congratulations to Wargaming for properly emulating the behaviour of certain random teammates, because it just made me feel more at home. Yeah, we've all seen stuff like that. So anyway, I gave the Spectre a little shove out of the way. Now, I do just sort of hang about here because I was just wondering, this is where I tested, if I had to go to the marker or if it was the Gorinich, and how far away. Another Gorinich does turn up on the outside, just down the street where I'm looking there. And the way that the lichens come, I was a bit concerned about this part of it being in the Tiger, because there's very little cover in here, and they come around this end and the other end, and I was actually going to go and hide and take cover behind the other Gorinich, so I was out in the open and I could actually take cover behind him, but I've got to come in here to set it off. So if you're in something like the KV4, you basically come in and you turn around and you back up to the KV5, cover your backside with him, and one lichen comes across and then another one, and what I try and do is get up to this pillar to start side scraping a bit, but with the second one coming I think I do take a hit. We're taking out the first one. No, it's not, it's because I side scrape, well, like a pile of crap, so I just get hit in the front. But the rate of fire on these things is ridiculous, so as soon as they start firing and get one into you, your health can go down very quickly. Now I'm just looking for a shot. There's only one left, and I think I can get one through here. Yep, there he is. So as you can see, they come from both ends, but again, the AI that's with you does do the job. They do have the odd glitch here and there, but you know, so do we all. Now here we have another one. He gets stuck on the platform and he can't actually get out. So I'll watch him for a minute or two, well, a few seconds, and then if you go back and basically just give him a nudge on that front corner, and he will sort himself out and be able to get up onto the platform. But while I'm doing that, I will say I have enjoyed these two PvE ones. Apart from, well, yeah, no, I have enjoyed them. Yeah, I have. I was going to say apart from the sort of trickiness of spotting the Revenants on the first one, but no, I don't think it matters. I think it just adds to the challenge. But no, I have enjoyed it. I don't know what the lowest tier you could do this in. On the console portal it does say not to do it in anything low tier, and to take something sort of higher tier. And the reason I went for a tier 7 is because, well, you're seeing tier 7 lights on one, tier 7 mediums on the other, and then you get obviously one tier 8 in each one as well. And on this last bit it's the same as it was on the last one. You get one of each tank, so you get a Spectre, you get a Lycan, you get a Gorinich, you get a Kaiju, and you get another Revenant Crafts Panther. Now the Spectre is one of the tanks that I've not actually mentioned. Everybody who's logged in has got one in the garage. It's tier 6 Russian light tank. It doesn't have any awakened abilities, but it shoots a plasma cannon with a rate of fire of something like 48 rounds a minute, and I think they've actually got a 10 meter blast radius if you check them out in the module viewer under the ammunition. So they do seemingly do high explosive damage with, like I say, a 10 meter blast area, which is quite good. But I do like the Gorinich's high explosive artillery type shell. And one thing I did notice was that when I was changing the ammunition costs around, when I was putting on more HE, taking off some APCR and putting more HE on the Gorinich, it was free for me to put the HE on. So it seems that the ammunition that has abilities attached with it, like the flamethrower fuel and the HE, seems to be free, but I could be wrong on that. Now I just had to move forward enough to set it off. The Spectre comes from down the road, the Lycan comes from our right, so that's the western side of the map and along, and that was my own fault. I should have backed off as soon as I saw the Lycan coming. In fact, I should have backed off before then and got behind this Gorinich, and it knocks my engine out, which does make it a little bit difficult from now on, or more difficult than it needed to be. But if you know the positions of them and where they're coming from, then you can get yourself into cover from the relevant place, and you can also keep an eye on that area. So I'm going to put another one into this side of the Kaiju, damage his ammo rack. Here's the enemy Gorinich. Now he doesn't do much apart from sit there spewing flame into the air like this guy's doing, and that's about it. I'm assuming if you get close enough he will try and burn you. But I'm going to keep hiding behind this friendly Gorinich. Yeah, as you can see there, he's just, yeah, spewing away. Now, something I do like is when the lichen hits you, instead of getting the shell marking that you normally get, you get scratch marks, which I think is a nice touch. I've not noticed anything else. In fact, I do wonder if you get hit by a Revenant Crafts Panther, whether you get bite marks. That's something I'm going to have to look at. But again, I'm just going for that R2-D2 machine gun turret. Now, it did also seem to glitch out on me in a minute with where the Revenant Crafts Panther comes from. When I did it before, I don't know quite where he came in from, but the first time I did this, he was going off towards F1 area, the western side of the map, at the bottom end of the park from where we are, and he was going off that way. And he basically went off and ended up coming all the way round and popped up again on what would be the eastern side of the park on our left hand side now. This time, for some reason, then the next time I did it, because I died on this bit the first time, the next time I did it, he went out that way again, the same way towards the railway tracks on the western side, and he actually turned down south towards sort of the K line there. This time, I'm not even sure what happened, he just doesn't show up. And this is why I'm looking around all over, because he sort of popped up in different places, and I did wonder if I was sat too far back for him to actually pop up, which is why I start creeping down. And I was just looking at my health thinking, well, it's alright, I can take a few hits, and as long as I don't get too far away from these allies, we should be able to take this Revenant Panther down. But I just couldn't understand why he hadn't popped up, because he does seem to come in down on that southwestern side of the park. And I've heard him pop up, you get the things saying that something's there, but you just can't see them on radar. And that's when he pops up again over on the southwestern corner of the park. We've just got to go for the turret, and that's him done. Well, I hope that might have been some use for you, and hopefully those little tips and ideas, well, tips and tactics, I don't know. Anyway, hopefully you might be able to do those ops now if you've been struggling with them, or if you've not even had a go at them yet, maybe have a go, but at least now you'll be prepared for what you're going to come up against, for where they're going to come from, and what sort of tank to actually take in there. And yeah, that's it really. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's episode. I'm not sure if I'll do a video tomorrow and skip Sunday this week. It's my little boy's birthday on Sunday, so I might do on tomorrow instead and not do on Sunday, but we'll see. I'm not entirely sure about that yet. But anyway, as always, take care out there, and I will catch you next time. See you later.